Hello, everybody. That's right, the big old sign right there. It's Lore Lords. Welcome back, everybody, to our 21st episode. I was going to lead today's episode, but we figured with the release to timestamp this a little bit, it is February 17th upon recording of this episode. The new Total War Warhammer 3 came out. And Atlas, our boy Atlas, has he been working on a special Lore Lords for Warhammer as he's been... I know nothing about Warhammer, but we're going to find out. So my name is Pat Weston, and we have our boy Atlas.
I'm Atlas.
And we're going to get crack-a-lackin' on this bad boy. I'm really excited. So my episode will be next week, but we have a nice, fun Warhammer-themed day for you guys. Atlas is playing Warhammer before we got started. We'll be playing Warhammer after, so...
Yeah.
It's a good day. Anyway, so Atlas, what do you got for us today?
Oh, so I've been into Warhammer since I was about 10 years old.
Wow.
Which, it's before a lot of us in America got really into it, I guess. And what got me into it was I think it was a demo disc that came with a like a video card or something that had Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War on it, which is a video game that honestly got most Americans into Warhammer. So that's where my love for it started. Over the years, it's only grown. I'm super into it. The lore is fantastic and super deep. So right. Since we started this podcast, I've had a notepad since before we even did the first episode of my topic ideas. And Warhammer was the second thing I wrote down.
Yeah, I know it is a little surprising that it took us this long to get there. But what better timing, I guess.
The first thing was cryptids.
We've definitely done that a few times, and more of that in the future.
Oh,
too.
That'll be coming. But it went cryptids and Warhammer. So this is like my big foray. Like you have Zelda, like you have these multi-part Zelda series of episodes. I'm going to be doing this multi-part Warhammer series of episodes. This is a part one. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
And this is a part one of just covering a timeline of Warhammer Fantasy Old World. Now, to split that up, just so people understand, Warhammer has two halves, and it's Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40,000. Warhammer 40,000 is the sci-fi version, which is much more popular. That is the big one, and then Warhammer Fantasy was the original version, which is very popular. Thanks now, especially to Total War, really boosted the population of the game, the popularity of the game, and the population of players. And they relaunched the miniature line, calling it Age of Sigmar, with fantastic rules, gorgeous miniatures that are very popular.
Does Space Marines come from Warhammer 40k?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's Warhammer in space. It's the same thing. Chaos, Empire, Orcs, Elves, same thing. Just no dwarves.
I
know. I don't know why.
Okay. No, because I know Space Marines.
Yes, battle brother.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be doing that too.
All right. Well, my only experience with this is like I used to love going into the game workshops in the malls and stuff, and they'd have like miniatures everywhere. And I remember like watching people playing literally in the thing because they'd have like live. I don't know if they did it here, but in Massachusetts they had it. Where people just be playing like the game on these giant maps and stuff. And I remember like my mom got mad at me because I literally was just watching for like an hour and a half, and she's just like, she just left me there. She's like, "Are you just gonna stay here? Can I go shopping?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Great." And I just remember watching. I didn't understand the rules at all, but as you know, as somebody who played at that point, I was playing like Age of Empires and like Age of Mythology and tactics RTSs and stuff like games. So I was like, I love that shit, and I was just kind of like, there's a tabletop with this, man. Fuck Monopoly. I'm all about this jazz. Yeah. So I remember like that's my only experience with it was just like watching people play, and I remember the guys were trying to explain it to me, but this was at a time in my life when I guess I had a lot of confidence because I remember being like, I don't understand, I'll just watch. Like I was like, I don't get it. It was nice of them.
The games workshops they're still around. They're in a lot of malls. I have one. Sometimes they're just called Warhammer. That's the name of the store. Sometimes they're not called Games Workshops in America. There's actually one in Santa Clarita, which is in the northern part of the valley, which is it's a Warhammer mega store, which has like a cafe in it, and it's all Warhammer themed, huge storefront. There's like I think there's 13 of them, and they're all named after the Space Marine Primarchs or something like that. I don't know.
MJ, you got to come out and visit, and then we got to go because that would be fun. Anyway.
Yeah, but that's a huge store out here, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But I do play the miniature game. I play in Warhammer 40,000. I play Chaos Space Marines.
Nice.
And in Warhammer Fantasy Age of Sigmar, I play the Night Hunt and the Ogre Maw tribes. So that's just so people listening. That's my stance on things.
I don't know what that means.
No, you don't. You'll learn more. I'm a big fan of Chaos. I've always been a huge Chaos fan, specifically Slaanesh, which we're going to get into in this.
Can I just guess what Chaos is a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. I think from all the little context clues that I have, is that Chaos is like a thing that it's like parallel dimension-esque, and it kind of like influences things. Because you said like Chaos Space Marines. There's regular Space Marines, and then there's Chaos Space Marines, which means that they're corrupted by Chaos. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Oh, nailing it. Okay.
So
and that's all I got so far.
Yeah, so as far as like corruption goes, a good way to think of it is like kind of like Sith.
Oh, okay.
But a little more extreme.
A little more viral, perhaps.
Yeah. But we're gonna get no, and yes. We're gonna get into what it actually means this episode. So here's the thing: Warhammer Fantasy is what this is focusing on. It is the original. It's high fantasy, elves, dwarves. It's based directly off of Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yeah, cool.
It's British,
Heck yeah.
So it's that kind of realm. It was created in the 80s.
Pond. Sorry, here.
Yeah, it starts from the 80s. 1983, I think, is when it was founded, which I have a little write-up here. It's like what Games Workshop is, because we'll talk about that first, just so people understand what we're talking about.
Right.
So let's just start with this. Games Workshop was a company in Nottingham, but it was founded in London in 1975 at 15 Bolingbroke Road. That's the address. So if you ever go by there, I think there's a little plaque out there that says the founding of Games Workshop. Because also, if you're listening to this in the UK, you probably know what Warhammer is. People in the UK just know what Warhammer is. It's like Lord of the Rings to them almost in like popularity. Like it is huge. Like Warhammer, they say like, "Oh, I got my Warhammers," like stuff like that, like referring to like interests and stuff like that. Like it's huge.
Okay.
So they founded it in London. It was founded by 3 people: John Peake, Ian Livingstone, and Steve Jackson. Now, Steve Jackson is a popular American brand of tabletop games, and while Games Workshop is a tabletop game company, that is not the same person. So just to clarify.
Okay.
I think Steve Jackson's the guy who made Munchkin in America. You've heard of Munchkin? It's a very, very popular like tabletop game. So in a whole bunch of other games. But people who know that will be like, "Oh, is that the same guy?" No, it's not the same guy. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So this company was founded to originally manufacture wooden board games, which are very common in Europe to be wood as opposed to plastic in America.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, they still are. If you get a tabletop game and you see the pieces are wooden, you can look at the back and I bet it's made in Germany.
That does sound nice, though. Yeah.
Yeah, so
everything's plastic in America.
Yeah, I'm super into tabletop game stuff too. Not just war games like Warhammer. Like I play like board game everything.
We've talked. I think we've talked about doing like a tabletop series.
Yeah, for sure. That's something I want to do. So games they manufactured: backgammon, Mancala, Go, chess, checkers. Right, that's what they made.
Classic.
And they were literally in a garage. So soon, however, they became an importer for a very popular United States role-playing game known as Dungeons and Dragons. So this Games Workshop brought D&D to the UK. So with this got them a lot bigger, and they began publishing their own role-playing and war games, leaving the garage mail order business and becoming an actual office. And in order to promote themselves as well as create a game club and provide a news source for games, they created a magazine called the Owl and Weasel Newsletter in February 1977.
That's a very whimsical.
Sorry, February 1975. February 1977. Correct. So in 1979,
that's like a Harry Potter thing.
1979. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sorry, my timeline. I typoed a date and that ruined everything.
It's okay.
1977, they made the newsletter. 1979, it got renamed to the magazine, which is still being published under the name White Dwarf. So you can still find it in stores out here, usually only in Games Workshops, but in the UK they're a bit more widespread. But yeah, they have a physical paper magazine called White Dwarf. It's all just Warhammer news. That's all it is. Everything about Games Workshop, what they make.
Wow.
1979, Games Workshop founded the company Citadel Miniatures in Newark on Trent. Citadel would produce metal miniatures for tabletop games such as Dungeons and Dragons, as well as a couple others. So these were the first ever D&D minis.
Neat.
Made by Games Workshop Citadel Miniatures. Gary Gygax, the famous creator of Dungeons and Dragons, even had a time considered merging with Games Workshop, but it never ended up happening.
Oh wow.
In 1983 was when everything changed, when they released a rulebook for a game called Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Now, this started everything. Warhammer Fantasy Battle is a high fantasy tabletop miniature war game based off their experience with Dungeons and Dragons as well as their love of Lord of the Rings. When this game first released, it basically was Dungeons and Dragons. Like, it had like a book with it where you had you had miniatures, which they made themselves. Citadel Miniatures, owned by Games Workshop, made miniatures for Warhammer, which was big because everyone else at the time had other companies make the models. So they were able to do everything in-house themselves for the first time. And you would have a rule book that would describe how to actually like have these miniatures, like you were describing earlier, on like a board with like terrain and stuff. Like you'd use back then like model train terrain, right? And you'd like move your guys around and stuff like that. But it also had this huge narrative element attached to it, where you basically had a Dungeons and Dragons like book where your army was led by a character you created. And like they would like level up as you played like Dungeons and Dragons through these things, which you can still kind of do in Warhammer. Yeah. They're called campaigns. Like they have rules for that kind of stuff, but most people just play battles in a skirmish format, like competitively, right? That's like how you play to get to just battle each other to win.
That was my only experience with it while watching.
That's the most popular one. But me and my friends have played like Warhammer campaigns and stuff, and like games like Kill Team. Like it's a very fun way to play with a group of friends to kind of have a narrative going along with your battles.
Yeah, I like that shit.
Yeah, no, like if that would be great for us to do one day, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. But so this game would be made, Warhammer Fantasy Battles, up until the summer of 2010, where it would be canceled, and then 2015 it relaunched as Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So Warhammer Fantasy Battles had 27 years of lore, and this comes from not only rule books, but they had hundreds of supplemental books, basically. Like, you would get the rule book for Warhammer Fantasy, right? But then you had to pick, like, oh, I want to play the dwarves. So you had to buy the dwarf rule book, too. And these books were thick, and 90% of it was just lore and stories.
Oh, my God.
It would give you so much lore and stories, and then painting tips, and then the rules, all the stats for the dwarves, right? So, like, that's what a lot of this lore comes from. They're called codexes.
I love nerds, man. They just fucking go for it. I love it.
And another thing that Games Workshop made is they have a publishing company called Black Library. And the Black Library makes novels. And that is also hundreds of novels exist of all these stories in the Warhammer world, right? So you have a lot of stuff to get lore from. And even though this world ended, new lore is still coming out through things like video games today. For example, Total Warhammer 3, two of the major armies in this game are Kislev and Cathay. We know almost nothing about them. Mostly Cathay. Kislev, we know their story, but there's some more little, now there's like sub-story room, because there's like more named characters and stuff. Right. Whereas Cathay was barely mentioned in any of the story. And it's basically China for this world. And it's barely talked about. It's always talked about as this far mythic kind of like land, and now it's got characters with names, cities with names, all this stuff like that. So that's more lore for this old thing coming out. Another series is the Warhammer Vermintide series, which is a Warhammer fantasy game series that takes place in this old world that, while it ended, we're now getting more lore through that. And it's got so popular, Total War and Vermintide, that they're relaunching Warhammer Fantasy Battles. We don't know when, but there's a date coming. It's going to be called Warhammer The Old World, and they're bringing it back to the tabletop with the miniatures from Cathay and Kislev from Warhammer Total War 3.
Wow.
So, it's all coming full circle. And that's just a little foreground so you guys know what Warhammer is.
Yeah, where it came from.
Yeah.
That's always nice and important.
Yeah, it's a British company that makes this game that now is infamously expensive. And they just raised the prices again this week.
That must have been fun for everybody.
And it sucks, but it's just kind of those things. It's inexpensive, but it's your hobby. You spend money on your hobby. That's how I see it.
It's true. Yeah, if you love it, then it's not a waste.
Yeah, exactly. So I love I love painting cool minis, so I get cool minis.
Oh, we love watching you paint them.
Yeah, watch me paint minis at twitch.tv/669. Okay, so that's Warhammer.
Right.
Now, so we're gonna go over the timeline of Warhammer today. So Warhammer Fantasy has a timeline basically going from like negative 15,000 to like positive, I think, like, I don't even know. I haven't gotten that far, but to a very far date.
Right.
So it's long. We're not even getting to the year 1 in this episode. Like, this is all going to be in basically the BC era of Warhammer.
Got it.
But there's a lot. There's a lot to cover. So Warhammer World has a calendar called the Imperial Calendar, or IC. And the timeline has been sorted out this way, similar to our kind of BCE and CE system,
right.
Where BC and AD, if you're old, simply known as C in a negative number form, and IC in the positive form, which just means negative calendar or imperial calendar, because the negative number is before the Empire was founded. The Empire is the main power in the world, which is the humans.
Oh, okay.
So they're just known as the Empire of Man, the kind of the leaders of the good guys, right? So that's their thing. So we're not even going to get to today. So that's just so you know what they are. We're not going to even talk about them today.
Yeah.
They
just made the history.
Yeah. They made a calendar that makes it easy to lay everything out.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So good job, humans. So the Warhammer map, which I have, and I'm bringing it up on stream now, it'll pop up for you in your delay in a second. But this map, is
wow,
based on Earth.
No way.
Yeah, as you can see. So you have a northern continent called Lustria. You have kind of Central America called the New World. You have Nagaroth, which is North America. You have Araby in the Southlands, which is Africa. The Badlands is the Middle East.
That circular country looks familiar from Warhammer 2 when I played as elves.
So that's where the elves live. That's Ulthuan. That's like the equivalent to what we would know as Atlantis.
I knew that. I knew that one.
I knew that. Oh, I get that reference. Captain America over here. Yeah. You can even see that little island called Albion. Mm-hmm. Albion from the King Arthur legends. It's the British Isles over there. Estalia is like Spain. Bretonia is France. The Empire right there. Our main guys are German, which you can tell by their names, like Hans and Emperor Karl Franz. The Dark
I do
Lands.
like how Cathay literally does not have any details.
Yeah, so yes, exactly. So Grand Cathay is over there. You can see it's kind of hard to read it, but the mountains to the left of Grand Cathay say Ogre Kingdoms in the mountains. Okay. So there's those mountains, that the Grand Cathay over there, the Dark Lands to the left, and kind of the south area. That's the map of Warhammer Total War 3. Total War 1 was just Europe, and then 2 was the entirety of Africa and North and South America and Ulthuan.
Yeah.
So
3 is the Empire?
3 is Grand Cathay, the Ogre Kingdoms, and the Dark Lands, and the Eastern Steppes and the Northern Wastes up there. So it's this whole area. Kingdoms of Ind, another nation we know nothing about except people shapeshifting to tigers.
Cool.
Hinterlands of Koresh, similar situation we know nothing about. Nippon, obviously, that's Japan. There's samurai. All we know. I mean, we might. I think Total Warhammer 3 might be the way Total War Warhammer 3, whatever you want to call it, is the way they kind of flesh these out for the first time, like they're doing with Cathay. I hope they do.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot. It's a lot. So this world map is going to be something we're going to be referencing a lot during this thing.
And it's nice that it's kind of it's a simple one to read, because I'm like, it looks like
I can reference. I'm going to be referencing things in this whole episode. I'll be like, oh, Nagaron, like North America. That's how I'll be saying it, so we know what we're talking about.
Right.
Because you can kind of picture it in your head a little better. But the beginning of the story, everything was Pangea. So this map doesn't really take effect for a little bit. But just imagine it's all squished together in one big continent, and it starts in the year negative 15,000 C.
Great.
We'll be going through these giant numbers very quickly.
Sure.
But it all started when this planet was discovered by a mysterious spacefaring reptilian race, only known as the Old Ones. And they arrived at this planet, and they realized that this place would be very special in their plans. But we don't know what their plans are. We never will. But this godlike race shows up, and they're like, "Oh, this is an important place." And we don't even know what they look like. We just know they're reptilian, because they made a species in their image, and that species would be the Slan, which I'm going to bring up on stream right now. So the Slan are a race of very, very magically powerful frog people.
I love frogs.
They usually just sit in chairs. If you play Warhammer, you'll always see Slan. They're just sitting in floating chairs. But they're very powerful mage priests, and they worship the Old Ones as gods. Next, they made the Saurus, which we have popping up right now. And the Saurus were going to be their warrior caste. They were living weapons, and they were created by blending now extinct creatures together by the Old Ones.
Okay.
So these are lizard people.
Yeah. It's a
they're
new
like
race, new sentient life.
Yeah, they're like dinosaur people. And so that's the Slan are the priests and the mages. The Saurus are the warriors. So the next big thing they did was they made another species called the Croxagore, which we'll bring up right now beneath the Slan. These are even bigger, brutish, living weapons. They're sentient. They're smart. They're still smart, but they're just giant monsters, basically. And then the final was the small skinks. And the skinks are like little tiny lizard people. They're like kind of like, some of them are even chameleons called chameleon skinks, but they're more like normal lizards, not dinosaurs or alligators. And they're small. Okay. They're the scouts. They're also magically adept. They sneak around. They're neat little.
They look sneaky.
Yeah, they're kind of like the scouts, right? They use blow darts a lot. And this is the Warhammer faction known as the Lizardmen.
Oh,
so they're the first ones to show up. They're created by the Old Ones. They're the oldest species on the planet. They're very heavily based on like ancient Aztec and Mayan style stuff.
Gotcha.
But they're the oldest race, and they're very important to the whole world in the story of Warhammer. And they, right now, are the only ruling power. So where all this is kind of starting in on the map, if you look, I took it away, is called Lustria, which is the South America area. Kind of like down in that area, it's all very heavy jungle, and that's where most of this is happening. So you can kind of get some Jurassic Park vibes, because the world's also covered in dinosaurs down there, and it still is in Warhammer. So like, it's just like a wild kind of Jurassic Park land.
Neat.
And in negative 1,000 to negative 5,600, this gap of time we're covering right now, the Lizardmen build their first cities.
Okay.
And the first city is called Itza, which is a temple city. And this city is followed by Zlanhuapec and Tlax. You can already tell they're very Aztec-y. And then when these cities were established, they were very powerful and religious. And the next generation was created when they spawned the second Slan. So more frogmen were created out of this. And
more magic frogs.
Yeah, so they had another. They now were expanding. So the Old Ones created more mage priests to help with that. And they used a mix of the Old One technology and magic to change the orbit of the planet in the solar system. Now, this put it into basically how we would equate our Earth to... Yeah, so this planet, we don't know where it was originally, but they moved it closer to the sun. So it was more conducive to life. Because apparently it was very hard for living on this planet. So they had to push it a little bit to get it into an orbit where the sun would allow life, and the spin would be like our Earth thing.
Way to go, reptile people. Way to rock it.
Yeah, again, very important.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. They're like, okay, just nudge it a little bit. So granted, they were guided by the Old Ones, who were like super space gods. So like, they had the power to do that kind of stuff, I guess. So when this also happened, over the next thousands of years, like during this period from -1000 to 5600, other sentient races started forming, and the old ones would begin to enforce their dominion over the inhabitants of this world, which would drastically affect their future. They would kind of separate them and make sure they wouldn't kill each other and allow multiple species to kind of live.
That's good. Guys, stop fighting.
Yeah,
Those are your
basically.
siblings.
Basically. So during this time, the Slan of the Third spawning are birthed, which create the cities of Tlaxclan, Quetzal, and Zlatlan. So these are all places, if you play Total Warhammer 2, you might recognize the names. These are all in the game. So these are all lizard people cities in like Lustria area and some other places. And then they create the fourth spawning. And the fourth spawning are slans, and these slans are made especially to protect an area known as the Polar Warp Gate. So old ones have these structures called polar gates. They're called the polar gates on this planet, or warp gates, whatever you want to call them. But these are massive gateways that connect the world to other planets in the old one's empire that spans galaxies, and they could travel through them. Yeah. So they would use these. They're basically giant, like stargates almost. They're like warp.
Yeah.
You know, there's travel gates.
Wait, so is the old ones, like, do they still exist in the universe in this, or do they, like, at this point, are they gone?
At this point, they're still here. They're still around.
Okay, they're still around.
Yeah.
They're just old.
Yeah, they're called the old ones. They're here. I don't think they're, like, physically on, like, boots in the ground a lot, but they are around helping guide things and, like, change the way things go.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, they established the polar warp gates in the north and south pole of the planet, and these, probably for reasons needed to, like, travel around, they make it the best places to build them, and they can transport themselves across their whole galaxy now without any issues. So, at the same time, the last of the temple cities were founded, creating a grid of energy that connected the major cities. And then they began their next major terraforming effort to separate the world into continents, making the map we have now. Yes, they split up Pangea to make the world better for sentient races to be able to exist on. So they weren't all like right next to each other. This is like thought out. Like there's going to be multiple people. They need to have space, they're not, or else they'll be fighting.
It's true.
So they separated everybody using this, and it worked. And it didn't matter. Distance did not matter, because all across this were temple cities built by the Lizardmen. And these Lizardmen temple cities had a grid of power, basically like magic ley lines connecting them. And they were able to communicate and travel instantaneously through them.
Jesus.
So Lizardmen,
Far beyond technology.
Yeah,
Jesus.
basically. They had, through magic and tech, they were able to like teleport across the planet with ease, right? And so this was also the time period that the old ones would experiment with the sentient species, usually culling some that were weak, forcing evolutionary paths in certain ways, which would end up with three major species known as elves, dwarves, and men. Old ones assure that their creations have a strong foundation by giving them solid land to live in, and they continue to keep them a little bit separate so they don't go crazy with each other, to slow the process of evolution to be more natural. Now they're kind of like letting go at this point. They're like, all right, you guys are good, and like letting go.
Nice.
Next, a huge world-altering event happened. The first time we're seeing one that is out of the control of the old ones, when a massive comet appears towards the end of the Age of Creation and lands, and doesn't cause an apocalypse, but it brings something with them, and these things are known as greenskins, which will bring up an image right now. So greenskins, also known as orcs and goblins, show
Where
up.
did these guys land?
They landed, we don't know exactly where. We believe it's an area called near the Badlands, kind of in the middle, the mountain area. That's where they mostly are now. So we don't know for sure how, but the greenskin shamans say that the gods Gork and Mork flung them from across the universe to land on this planet to take it over.
So that immediately sets up orcs and goblins versus humans, dwarves, and elves.
Yes, they're just a pure destructive force. And the old ones recognized them. They said, oh god, not these guys again. And they knew they were a huge threat, so they rallied all the lizardmen on the planet to stop them. But despite their best efforts, they could not remove this parasitic race.
Oh no.
So they were able to just keep multiplying and growing there to the point where they're like, listen, just keep them under control, but we can't get rid of them, kind of thing. Like, you have to live with them. They're kind of like this parasite on your world, but you're gonna have to deal with it.
That's mean.
So yeah, I mean, they're pretty mean. So so they were kind of having to keep the orcs and the goblins contained as best they could, and that was the end of the Age of Creation. And now we go to our next time period, which is negative 5600 to negative 4500.
All right, we're making our way, baby.
Yeah. So this is called, as you'll soon see why, the Age of Chaos.
Oh, here we go.
So the polar warp gates were showing some weird things going on with them, where outside the gateways on the planet's poles, these green crystals started growing. And this is known as, if you know your Warhammer, this is what's known as warp stone. And these lizard men were guarding these gates, and they were hearing things coming from the gates. And basically like, hey, do you hear that? No? Okay. Kind of like that was the attitude.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Kind of thing. But they knew something was wrong. The Slan Mage Priest knew something was wrong, and the old ones knew something was wrong too, but they didn't know what. And sure enough, whatever this nascent malign intelligence thing behind these gates just struck out of nowhere, and super swiftly both polar gates basically exploded.
Oh no.
And they started collapsing in on themselves like a black hole almost. And this caused the poles of the world to drastically change forever, which is why they're completely frozen over. You can even see on the map it says Southern Wastes, here be demons. At the very top it says Chaos Wasteland, Northern Waste. So they were just like massive wastelands that were created. And this brought the force known as chaos into the world.
Okay.
So I have here of our little show and my script, part 2. What is chaos?
What is chaos?
What is chaos, guys? So now you were asking earlier. So we're going to get into chaos.
Great.
Chaos, my favorite thing in Warhammer. I'm going to throw that logo up on the stream right now. That is the icon of chaos. It's the 8-pointed star. That is what the chaos uses as symbols. I've often thought of getting it tattooed on my arm in real life. So chaos is the universal and usually malign force of disorder that permeates the Warhammer world. And it is a force of pure magic that resides in a dimension known as the Realm of Chaos. And the Realm of Chaos is the antithesis to the natural world. So the natural world, like the Warhammer world, or the world like we live in now, is defined by physical laws and order, where the Realm of Chaos is ever-shifting magical landscapes and, well, chaos, making it like just wild.
Think about the actual definition of chaos and fuck rules.
Yeah, exactly. So
rules don't apply.
The creatures of chaos are known as demons.
That's mean.
And these demons, they named themselves, okay? These demons, spelled Daemon, everyone.
Oh, that's not as bad, okay.
Is,
a different word.
Yes, it's a good word for it. So these demons are spawned and controlled under the service of 4 different gods. And these are the chaos gods, also known as the ruinous powers. And their names are Nurgle, Khorne, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh. So we're going to...
chaotic names.
Yeah, so we're going to go into these 4 in order. I even made these little info cards. I made these myself, so be proud of me. They're going to be on stream. They all have, so there you can see that symbol with the name of the god Khorne, and so Khorne is the blood god.
Yeah.
He's the god of wrath.
The blood god.
Yeah, yep, that's the famous one. That's why I put him first. Everyone knows Khorne. Yeah. He's like the most famous one. Blood for the blood god is a famous saying in Warhammer. And everywhere on the internet, you'll see people just type it places. This is where it comes from. Khorne, the blood god. And he's the god of wrath, violence, murder, and, of course, blood. And his archdemon is a creature known as the Bloodthirster. Which I'm going to put up right... Yeah, put it right now.
It's a great item in League of Legends.
It is. It's a great League of Legends item. Lifesteal's great.
Exactly.
I put a little picture over the symbol of what a Bloodthirster is. Basically, think Balrog, and you got a Bloodthirster.
Right, okay.
So... Searching for strength, needing to conquer your foes is the number 1 tenet of Khorne. And those who worship him are known as Khornice or the Bloodbound. and they often possess greater strength, and they often go into berserker frenzies to spill blood for Khorne. He is commonly known as the strongest Chaos God.
Yeah, I mean, usually the violent ones tend to be.
Yeah, but so the way Chaos works and their gods, these things have never been physically seen. Like, they might not even physically exist, but they do spiritually and magically exist. Like, they are sentient entities out there. They never physically manifest. Everything is done through demons or champions that they speak to. But it seems like it's some kind of competition between the four gods always. Like, it seems like anything mortal is beneath them anyway, so they would never care.
Yeah. I was gonna say, no, like last night, I was playing Little Warhammer 3 with you and MJ, and we were kind of talking about the relation to Elder Scrolls, and somebody actually in chat even said an Elder Scrolls reference too. That like, yeah, that kind of sounds like the different. Oh my god, what are they called?
Daedric.
The Daedric princes. Yeah, it's like the Daedric prince.
Yeah. So a big difference between that is where the Daedric princes are very involved. The Chaos gods, whatever they're doing and thinking, is so above us.
Right.
That it's like this is all almost like a plaything to them, but they get physically stronger by the actions done by mortals. And in the example of Khorne, since he's the blood god, whenever blood is spilled, he gets strong. Yeah. Even if you're ignorant of him, spilling blood is still getting him stronger. Just that act of violence and warfare empowers Khorne.
I love that.
Yeah, so even if you're ignorant of it, you're still getting, and when you do it, you get a little bit of chaos corruption. It happens to your soul. Your soul gets a little bit of Khorne corruption. If chaos is present on your world, which in Warhammer it is, you get that little bit of like chaos taint in you. It can be, so minor that it never affects you your entire life. Like, of course, a elf warlord who's killed thousands of people is still in his mind a good guy, doing good things. So he's not going to become chaos. But if you choose to, you can easily go down that path if you fall into the corruption.
It does kind of have that Star Wars, the Force thing.
Yeah, exactly. So when his followers kill people or sacrifice people, his enemies kill his own people, he gets stronger. Anyone killing anyone makes him stronger. So the ancient saying of Khorne is, Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it does flow. So as long as there's blood spilling, he's getting stronger. And his rival of the gods is Slaanesh, which we'll get into more when we talk about Slaanesh. But they hate each other. So the four gods are always trying to get one up on each other. But Nurgle and Tzeentch have a rivalry, and Khorne and Slaanesh have a rivalry. And them trying to get the one up on each other seems to be their main goal in existence. And it's like a never-ending cycle, right? It's always waxing and waning between them. Yeah.
That's what ambition will do to you.
Yeah. So that's Khorne. That's all we need to know about him for now. Blood god, likes war. Bloodthirsters are his main guys. His generals are bloodthirsters.
Got it.
Next, we have Tzeentch. I'll throw my Tzeentch info up. There's a symbol of Tzeentch. So Tzeentch is the changer of ways. And he is the chaos god of sorcery, change, and manipulation. He is known by endless amounts of names throughout history and different people, but his number one title, again, the changer of ways, but also the master of fortune and the architect of fate. So,
It doesn't seem all that bad. Honestly.
Yeah, so if you look at what he's the god of, sorcery, change, hope, and manipulation. Yeah. So all the chaos gods have a positive spin to them. Khorne's is the hardest one to get on board with, but usually the positive spin of Khorne is that war can cause peace. It's usually like peace as an end goal is a reason that Khorne exists, kind of thing. Which doesn't make any sense because the war. That's a weird one to kind of grasp. But the other ones are a bit easier. Maybe Slaanesh is a bit difficult, but Tzeentch, hope is a good thing, right? And it makes him stronger. So again, we talked about how anything makes you stronger. So anytime someone has hopes, you're making Tzeentch stronger, and you're getting a little bit of Tzeentch corruption in you, which is huge, right? Like that's everyone almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whenever you do any kind of magic, it makes him stronger. Whenever you have a change in your life, physical is not like if you lose a leg, Zinch gets stronger.
Change.
You're strong. Your change
And
in your
corn.
life.
Both
Yeah, and corn. Yeah, exactly. They all are connected, as you'll see. But
I like
like,
that part. That's
so
what
he's kind of like that's his thing.
I don't hate Zinch. I was like, Corn, I can't see myself worshiping that guy. But Zinch, I'm like, the manipulation part I'm not a huge fan of, obviously. But like, sorcery I see as not a negative thing. Change and hope I see as positives. So I'm like, you're not that bad. Again, I don't like the manipulation. But
yeah, so most of his associates are, he's closely associated with magic, so his associates are sorcerers. Another big thing of his is dynamic mutations.
Right.
He also embodies mortal ambition and hunger for knowledge and hope for change.
Right.
So,
okay.
yeah, his followers are often known as the disciples of Zinch, often seen wearing like golden bird masks and stuff like that. They're usually sorcerers, and they even mutate their bodies to get like beaks or feathers or claws, very bird-like stuff. But then there's also non-bird-like stuff, like the marauders who work for Zinch and worship Zinch will often have like crab claw hands. Or just like blade hands, but they're like weird tooth blade hands, or hands that are giant claw sword, like gross things like that.
Yeah, great.
He uses his knowledge a lot of times for divination, and those are his biggest weapons. Hence the name Architect of Fate. He's usually messing with people by going into their dreams, listening to their hopes, and he is the least of the observer. He is the least observer of all gods, as he likes to physically kind of stick his fingers in things, and he'll often interfere with fate to fulfill his own extremely unknowably complex schemes.
Oh yeah, no, he seems, again, as somebody who promotes Chaos IRL, he'd be the guy for me.
Okay, I also really like Zinch. Zinch is my second favorite of the gods. I'm a big Slaanesh god, but Zinch is like kind of secretly one of my favorites. I've always wanted to paint a Zinch army in Warhammer because they got really cool little dudes. And magic's cool,
Yeah,
throwing magic at him. So
love magic. Big fan of magic.
archdemon is the changer, Lord of Change. I'll pull a picture of him up now.
Okay.
They're usually giant bird people. They're giant, massive demons with bird legs and big bird mouths and big wings.
Yeah, they look cool. I like birds.
Yeah, so that's Zinch's big thing.
Nice.
So next, we go into Nurgle. So Nurgle is the oldest of all the Chaos Gods, and he is known as the Plague Father.
Oh, I don't think I like him.
So he is the god of disease, destruction, decay, death, and life. And he represents morbidity, illness, physical corruption, and the desire of mortals to elude death and achieve immortality and freedom from all pain.
Oof. That seems like he literally feeds off of human weakness.
Yes. So he is the opposite of Zinch, as we talked about, where Zinch is hope, Nurgle is despair. So they are the complete opposite. But the positive spin to Nurgle is he is the god of life. So growth, stuff like that. That's all growth, and nature is all part of his thing. It eventually always ends up twisting into rotten plague, which is his end goal. But that's still still natural.
The whole process of life makes Nurgle powerful. If you have a kid, that kid's going to grow, which makes him powerful, and then it's going to decay, which makes him powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So he is.
He's a fucking cheater. He's a cheater.
He is a cheater. He's the oldest. He's the original Chaos God.
Okay, that's good to know.
He is often described as a massive, pussy, pox-infested creature with antlers and grotesque figure.
Great.
That's like the description of Nurgle you always see drawn or carved. He is known to be the friendliest of all Chaos Gods, however. And he actually cares about his followers as opposed to the other three who don't give a rat's ass about mortals.
Right.
So his followers, known as the Maggotkin of Nurgle, which I love that name, they are often extremely tough to take down. They're usually filled with pus or flies, and they just they're giant bloated people covered in plate armor that just don't like to stay down. Their mere presence will spread disease, like all kinds of cancers and stuff, just by breathing the air near them. But Nurgle is typically joyful and kind, with a positive demeanor, And his chosen often get the choice to be filled with things like I mentioned, flies or pus as their defense. They get if you want to be more powerful, you just ask him. He'll be like, do this, and you do it, and he'll be like, good job, buddy, here you go, now you're a fly. That kind of thing. Which is what they want, I guess.
So, like, if you're a follower of Nurgle, it's kind of like letting go in real life. You know, you just got to let go and be disgusting, and then, like, who gives a shit? And then you're happy, truly, truly happy. That's Nurgle.
Yeah, he's... So being a follower of Nurgle, I guess the real end goal is you never will die. You're an immortal. You have every disease, and it's not going to kill you, so that's taken out. You're immune to all diseases yourself. You're getting stronger from them instead of weaker from them, kind of thing, you know?
That's true.
And so his demon, many people's favorite, is the Great Unclean One, as it's shown on stream there. Gore warning, I guess.
Right, okay.
They are massive, grotesque, slow figures, antlers, and their guts usually hanging out. But maggots really nice, writhing around them. I don't think those guys aren't nice. Their dad, their father, Nurgle is, but they themselves, they will eat you right up.
Nurg's good, but
those
kids.
So now,
Great Unclean One.
Yeah, Great Unclean One. Yep. You playing Total Warhammer 3, you're gonna see plenty of them. Next, we go into my favorite, Slaanesh. So Slaanesh is the Dark Prince and the Chaos God of pleasure, passion, decadence, and pain.
Oh, all right.
Some of his other traits are greed, lust, desire, and indulgence.
Ah, okay.
So Slaanesh is the youngest of the Chaos Gods.
He's doing a lot of drugs.
Yeah, Slaanesh does any drug you can give him. He is the rival of Khorne, opposite in every single way.
Yeah, no shit.
Slaanesh will always appear as male, female, or both, depending on what you want. Slaanesh has no gender. They just use male pronouns, so they're very progressive. He's very progressive, sorry. Goes by the Dark Prince, but often depicted as a woman. He always appears attractive to his followers. So you see him what turns you on. That's how you see Slaanesh.
Okay. That's manipulative.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Zench like that.
So
every time Slaanesh manipulates somebody, Zench gets stronger. I'm seeing it. Let's keep going.
Yeah. The difference is it's not really manipulation because it's just giving into your desire.
Oh, that's fair.
It's more like you're just telling them what they want and they admit they want it and go on board.
No. Unless, of course, you can resist it. I see.
Yeah. So his faction, known as the Hedonites of Slaanesh, are often throwing massive orgies and feasts.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
That's their life. The Slaaneshi demons are and their followers of all the kinds are often like grotesque representations of the ideas of greed, pleasure, passion, decadence, and one of the most powerful ones, pride.
Yeah.
And they're known for being extremely fast and efficient in battle, like they're the fast attack kind of guys. Right. But they don't prefer to kill. They don't want to spread the blood. Khorne, no, we don't do that. We capture them, take them home, and kiss them.
Okay. Well, I guess that's not the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, so here's the biggest... There's a big argument amongst fans. Who's stronger, Slaanesh or Khorne? Now, I personally believe Slaanesh, and here's why. Every time anyone feels pride, Slaanesh gets stronger. You got a promotion at work, Slaanesh got stronger. You're hoping for a promotion at work, you just improved Tzeentch and Slaanesh. Because anything that personally is affecting you, in your mind, your emotion, is making Slaanesh stronger.
And I'm horny all the time, so Slaanesh is probably just like...
Yeah, every time sex is had, Slaanesh gets stronger. Anytime someone just lusts after somebody, Slaanesh gets stronger. Anytime someone buys something just for the purpose of buying something, he gets stronger. Anytime someone wants a job, Slaanesh gets stronger because you're getting money. It's all. He just gets stronger all the time from everyone's.
I feel like almost like our planet Earth went in on Slaanesh a little bit. like in real life.
Yeah, kind of. Like, especially because people aren't dying as much as they used to. Like, Slaanesh just kind of won, like, in our life.
Yeah, in our lifetime, he kind of won. I mean, there's still a lot of warfare going on, but for the most part, the things that have... Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, so
my brain's exploding.
Yeah, Slaanesh is great. Love Slaanesh. He's my favorite. One of my favorite units are called Fiends. They're, like, four-legged, like, kind of like centaur people, but their heads have giant, long, like, tongues for sex reasons.
Okay.
They have arms with crab claws, and their heads also have like big bulging black eyes. But the biggest part is their body has 6 tits. uncovered, fully exposed. And they're in Total Warhammer 3, so get ready.
No, I'm very excited. I know Slaanesh appears as what you want, which I'm very thankful for, because like I get that they have long tongues for sex reasons, but I don't like it. I don't think
No, so here's the thing: they're probably going to tongue you to death, but also these are the demons.
But there's not going to be no blood.
The demons do not appear sexy to you. The demons are, as I mentioned, they're grotesque. Like they look like abominations. They're like a mix of every fetish. They also wear hot leather and have really sexy hips. By the way, like I said, they're like centaurs. They have like 4 human legs with like really fit calves and like thighs, wearing like lingerie with hooves.
God, I would love to see a fucking sitcom with the 4 of these guys interacting.
So it exists. It's called Warhammer. It's because they're integral to every plot. Everything chaos is always the problem everywhere because it's always it's just emotion. You know, you can't get rid of it. Basically, is the problem.
So if chaos never came to this planet, emotions wouldn't.
Chaos always existed, but since the gates are open, it is now much more raw. Like it's out there. It's like there's just an open wound on the planet getting festering and stronger.
See, that's what we don't have on this planet right now.
Yeah. So
we haven't had a gate to chaos open yet.
I almost forgot. His archdemon is Slaanesh called the Keeper of Secrets. Put a picture up now. You can kind of see in that art, there's also the Keeper of Secrets, and then beneath are the Demonettes, which are the main troops of Slaanesh. And
he looks cool as shit, or his demon.
Yeah, you kind of can't see, but because the sword is covering it, but he has one boob. Now, this is very common.
Nice.
Almost all Slaanesh creatures are literally down the middle, male, female, and some of them even have some bulges down there.
I'm down with that.
So it's like they're kind of like they're all genders. That's all kind of their whole thing.
That's what we're all coming to, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Slaanesh 1. I'm just gonna keep saying it. Slaanesh 1.
Progression is Slaanesh. Let's go Slaanesh.
Let's go Slaanesh.
So here are the 4 Chaos Gods. We've now described them. We know what they are. But there's a 5th faction of Chaos, and that faction is called Chaos Undivided. Now, Chaos Undivided is the rarest of Chaos champions, but these are people who have got the blessing of all 4, which makes them the strongest. They are champions of Chaos who are so good that all gods are like, damn, son, you good at killing. And then Tzeentch is like, damn, you're really good at like magic. And Nurgle is like, damn, you look good made of flies. And then Slaanesh is like, dang, so you hot. Yeah.
You're so hot. Yeah.
So like they get that blessing of all. And this can be a demon. Like there is a very famous demon named Be'lakor in which is one of the coolest miniatures ever. If you want to look that up, it's BE''LAKOR. He is the ultimate demon, basically. He's the strongest of all demons, and he is undivided. And you'll usually see them as they look much more traditional fantasy demon, like they're all black, usually with like big horns and bat wings kind of thing. Like they're very.
It looks like it.
Yeah, they're just like these demons. Yeah, and their troops are usually their troops are usually going to be just men wearing all black armor. Cool. Black's usually the color of chaos and undivided. And you also get all 4 demons will also follow Chaos Lords who are undivided because they have the blessing of their god.
The Bloodthirster,
yep,
the Lord.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, wow. So they have all these guys who work for Chaos Undivided, but they're very rare when they show up. And that's my little breakdown of Chaos. So now you kind of know who these 4 guys are.
I love it. This is awesome.
We're not really going to go into more specifics about these 4 specifically.
Oh, I don't think you need to.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Chaos as a whole. Not going to be like, oh, Slaanesh's forces, we're here. No, we're just going to talk about Chaos being Chaos.
Yeah.
So we'll get rid of all this fun stuff, but we can keep the Chaos Star up because it's just Chaos, right?
It's basically taking over the planet.
Yeah. There it is, walking over. And that's what's happening in this world right now. Because Chaos in mass entered the world through those collapsed gates we talked about. And the old ones basically shuddered. The gods shuddered at this happening as they were so like, oh, fuck, this is bad.
Yeah.
Kind of situation. And it got pretty bad pretty quickly. So their response was, we need a weapon. We need to make something to stop these things right now. So they made a little creature called ogres. Now, ogres were made as a weapon, as a sole living weapon to fight chaos. Unfortunately, they were a little rushed, so the brain part didn't really get finished. So yeah, we ogres are here. So they're pretty dumb, but they're good at killing chaos.
That's good.
Yeah, they were massive brutes built to withstand demons. And when that was done, the old ones said, "Peace out, guys," and never shown themselves again.
So, okay, they worked so hard on this planet. The second chaos shows up, they're just kind of like, all right, here's some big dumb brutes out.
Yeah, so we don't know if that was part of the plan, if they were like leaving this world to be like itself now, or something happened to them maybe in space, like they left and got killed. We don't know. But we never will. So that's that. The old ones are gone. Everyone was left to themselves. So the first thing that happened was this temple city, Lizardman Temple City of Zahuatek, fell under the might of the demons. The mage priests and spawning pools were corrupted with chaos. The Lizardmen mustered the largest army ever known on the planet to combat these demons and had a massive titanic battle where countless millions are slain. I got a nice picture there of a chaos invasion. So, to also describe what these chaos are doing, yes, they were demons, but one specific sentient species, humans, kind of fell in with chaos right away. The humans didn't have any organization at the time. They were kind of wild tribes. So when these demons showed up, they're like, oh, look, gods, and just kind of like fell in line. So humans filled the ranks of these demons with knights and marauders wearing armor, and they were very dangerous because they were all demonically enhanced.
Right.
So the races around the world, such as the elves and the dwarves, and basically the elves, dwarves, and lizard men, united together to fight against the demons, but they were fighting a losing war. And the entire population of the temple cities Huatel, Tlanxla, Chakwa, and Zotl are slain by demons, which each of those big cities in this big energy grid, right, with transportation. Right. They all get slaughtered by demons. And each of the temple cities weakens enough where the grid starts to break. One Slan, named Adohi Tega of the Tlaxtlan city, was able to defeat the demons after weeks of battling, and used the last of his power to kind of lend aid to the rest of these cities, which stopped the grid from total collapse.
Okay.
So it was weak, but it existed, which was big for them.
Good job, good guys.
Yeah, so this was when in the Southlands, which you can see on the map, which is kind of the middle and south of Africa part, the Lizardmen during here, contact was lost. So there's Lizardmen there, but the other Lizardmen, they fell off the grid, basically, when it got weaker. So it was kind of like, we can't teleport to you, we can't talk to you, but we're there, good luck kind of thing. So the mage priest from the first spawning, so it was an old-ass Slan, named Chikata of Zlatan, uses an Old One spell to destroy an entire demon horde in the Southlands. So the leader of these guys who were isolated, but it does kill himself in the process. So he wipes chaos out of the Southlands, but he dies, so they have to kind of fend for themselves now. So now, this hunter-gatherer species in this land called Ulthwan, which we talked about, looking like Atlantis, called the Elves, or the High Elves, almost go extinct due to demons fighting them. But their mages, who were taught under the Slan, are able to start to push demons back using a desperate spell, sacrificing themselves to do so. And the Slan, our frog boys, show up and say, you guys are doing a good job, let's help out. So they bolster their magic powers. And so the elf allies with the Slan are able to push all the dwarves back to the pole gates. Or to start dwarves.
Nice.
Demons, not dwarves. Dwarves are good. They push the demons back to the pole gates and kind of lock them inside.
Way to go, elves.
So
and frog people.
Yeah, they're locked in, but they're still there, poking out. But they're locked in, and this magic's keeping them there. So the immediate threat stopped. But over time, their power waxed, and they started to reemerge. And eventually, they built their strength up and started to invade again. But it wasn't quite as sudden. People were starting to get ready now at this point. We're like, we know you guys are there. We can build up, especially the High Elves. They start building up, training soldiers, that kind of thing, right? When this happened, there's a city named Chuapotli, which sunk into the ocean. That was another big part of the grid. The disruption caused it to basically sink. So that was a whole lost Lizardmen city. Just put that out there. Not really important, but cities fall into the ocean. I guess due to chaos invasion. Yeah, and they lost a bunch of lizard men that way. So our next chunk of time is negative 5,000 C, which isn't very long, but there's a couple of notes here. The lizard men around the world, except for the holdouts in the Southlands, are pushed back to Lustria, which you can see is South America, kind of down there. Yeah. And this is so lizard men basically are only now in the Southlands and Lustria. The rest of the world has been abandoned by them. The dwarves are guided by creatures known as the ancestor gods, who are dwarves. We don't really understand what the ancestor gods are, but they are dwarves with godlike attributes and powers. Maybe the first dwarves made by the old ones. We don't really know. Okay. But the dwarves worship them as gods, basically.
Where are the dwarves located usually?
So that's what we're going to talk about right now. So you can see the map where it says right in the middle. You see that giant mountain range that literally cuts through the whole map, like right down the middle. Yeah. So that is the World's Edge Mountains, and that's where the dwarves live. They begin with the guidance of the ancestor gods, carving into the mountains and colonizing their mountain homes, just like Lord of the Rings is, like in the mountains, right?
Right.
So the ancestor gods are named Grungi, Valea, Grimnir, Gazul, Smednir, Thugni, Morgrim, and then finally Grombrindal, aka the White Dwarf, which is maybe an ancestor god. We don't really know. Right. But these ancestor gods are still alive, guiding the dwarves at this time period. Like they're with them physically. Okay. Like, let's go do this, guys, and they're worshipped and they're helping them get stronger.
Thanks, God. Yeah.
Yeah. So this whole mountain pass is starting to get settled.
From top to bottom?
Basically, yeah. Starting in the Empire area towards the north and kind of going down, different dwarves are starting different little kingdoms in there. They also create them in the Giant Home Mountains, which are the ones to the I think it's to the north. Yeah, the very north, where it says Norska, basically like Norway, Scandinavia area. They start to go there, as well as the mountains of Morn, which are those mountains where you see it just says the Ogre Kingdoms over the right. They start to live there.
Oh, okay. That must be dangerous.
Yeah, this is also when the ancestor god Grimnir slays Skaladrak, who is the father of all dragons. That's an important part of their history. So, basically the dragon god got killed by a dwarf god. Rock on, dwarves. Kick ass.
Let's go.
I love dwarves in Warhammer. They're metal as fuck. So now we have part 3 of the story, the second Chaos Invasion.
Oh, good.
So we start this story at negative 4,500 C, and in this part, we're going to actually start getting into characters for the first time, like actual named people who are important.
Oh, okay.
So negative 4,500 C, the chaos assaults the world in full once more from both poles, causing massive devastation once more. The elf, during this time, there's an elf, and he's wandering the world. I think he's actually in the Empire area kind of at the time, like Europe. And his name is Anarion, and he decides to return to Ulthuan because he sees the chaos coming, and so it's a time of need. He's going to go back because he knew that they were still mostly hunters. Like they just had like hunting spears and bows. They weren't like a warrior race. They just had magic. That's all they had. And he's like, that's not enough. Chaos are made of magic. It's hard to fight them with magic. Like I got to go back and do something. So he goes back and battling through demons. Like he shows himself to be a very powerful warrior. Like he cuts through demons to get here, and he ends up going back to Ulthuan in an area known as the Shrine of Assyrian. And this is so he pleads with the creator god of the elves, Assyrian, which the elves have their own whole pantheon of gods, which we don't know what they are, but they are some kind of species. It is very likely similar to the dwarf ancestor gods. They are just the original elves, but they passed away and they live as like spirits who are so powerful they can like basically be gods, like a spirit realm, right? That's kind of what we believe. They're very similar to Greek gods. Like Assyrian is kind of like Zeus in the way that he's like the father of all gods. He's like the god of life kind of thing, right?
Sure.
So he goes to Shrine of Assyrian, which is the shrine of the creator god, and he pleads with him to aid his people and gives him a ton of offering, money, food, sacrifices goats. Doesn't get an answer. Assyrian doesn't bat an eye. No response. Anarion finally offers himself. He says, okay, listen.
Take me instead.
Yeah, I will be the I'll be the champion. Like I will be your offering. Like I will be your like sacrifice if you show up and help these people. So Assyrian doesn't answer. No response. And he's like, great.
That's sad.
But you know what? I made a promise, so I'm going to do it. So Anarion strips himself naked and steps right into the fire.
Oh.
In this fire known as the Eternal Flame, which has been burning forever at the Shrine of Assyrian. And he just steps in it. Agony racks his body as his limbs are seared, his flesh is gone, and his hair is on fire. His heart stops, and he falls to the ground. And the people at the shrine had basically given up hope as they saw him die. But he got back up, barely living, and climbs back into the fire. And as he did, his skin healed and his hair regrew, and he emerged unscathed, transformed, now possessing the spirit of the god of Assyrian. And he is called Anarion, the Phoenix King. So there's a picture of him on stream right
very
now.
Appropriate name.
Yeah.
Badass.
So all the elves, high elves, unite under Anarion, and as this is happening, there is hordes of a race known as Beastmen, which I'll throw another little picture up of them real quick. The Beastmen are literally Beastmen. They are one of my favorite armies of all of Warhammer Fantasy as well. They're like men with horns and stuff like that. They're Beastmen. You'll see them on stream. Oh, yeah. They're Beastmen.
Yeah.
It's like satyrs and stuff like that. So they're assaulting. They're chaos. They worship chaos. So they're like assaulting the Shrine of Assyrian at that moment. He steps out, throws a spear, immediately kills the leader of the Beastmen tribe with it. The Beastmen start to panic. He picks up the Beastmen's weapon and starts slaughtering them. Like, no issue. And all the elves are like, holy shit, what is this guy? So he's just fucking killing Beastmen like nothing. And all the elves are like, we got a chance, let's go. They start to get armored up and weaponed up and trained under him. And so the first Phoenix King really kind of makes his place known, right? Elves have an army. We're powerful. Fuck off, chaos kind of thing happens.
Good. They needed that.
Yeah. They got a big win, and then the
whole planet needed that.
Yeah, and an even bigger win for Anarion happened when an elf, very, very sexy elf lady, the Ever Queen Astariel, shows up and marries him.
She's like, dog, I love what you've done with the whole Phoenix thing.
Love your feathers. They're great. So the Phoenix... So she's called the Ever Queen, and she was like famously like she's like Galadriel, basically, literally, like the most beautiful elf in the land. Like she's perfect, kind of stuff. Nice. And they get married, and they have 2 kids, a daughter named Yvraine and son Morelion. They're twins, to be clear. Yvraine and Morelion. Those are names of their kids. At the same time, in the land of Lustria in South America, just to make a note of this, there's a Slan named Lord Mazdamundi. You might recognize him if you're listening and play Total Warhammer 2. He is playable in that game. He holds up a protective barrier around the great temple city of Ixodal, but in doing so, basically can't help any other lizardmen in the area, so all of them die except for him, but they can't get through his shield. So
sorry guys, gotta sacrifice y'all, but don't worry, I'll be okay.
Yeah, so then we go forward about 100 years in negative 4450 C, where the siege of the city of Itza, after 4 centuries, reaches its end in Lustria. Lizardmen finally able to break back the demons with the eldritch might of the famous Slan Lord Croak, also playable in Total War, and currently, just for anyone playing Warhammer Miniatures game, the strongest miniature in the game, Lord Croak.
Fun fact.
Yeah, he is slain in battle. There's a picture of him on screen right there to the left of Anarion. So he gets slain in battle, but he is so powerful, he just refuses to die. And just doesn't. So he just lives on as a corpse sitting in a chair. So you can kind of tell by that picture, he's a mummy, basically. Okay. Like he's just a skeleton frog sitting in a chair, but his spirit is still alive inside of his corpse and will be forever.
I don't need a fucking body to live.
Literally. He's just like, oh, fuck you guys. I'm not dying. And they're like, oh. I didn't know you could do that. So talking about cheating, there you fucking go.
No shit.
Yeah. So back at the... back on the elf side of things. We got that kind of done with. another elf rises to prominence named Kaeldor Dragon Tamer. So this Kaeldor Dragon Tamer is the strongest mage. Yeah, so also, by the way, it's important to mention, dragons and elves like live side by side. Like, they're very close, related to each other.
That's so cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, like they ride dragons. Dragons fight with their armies. Dragons are sentient. Like, they're very intelligent, and they like to work together.
Yeah. Dragons
are for the forces of order. They're good.
So that's a change.
So yeah, it is. They're great. They're very good friends. Why did the dwarf kill the fellow dragons? I don't fucking know, but he did, and it's badass.
Because he's like, watch me do this, brothers.
Yeah, basically. So Kaeldor Dragon Tamer was the strongest mage of all time, and the demon invasion was getting really bad, and he called together a council of all the nobles, like the tops of all the elves, called the Council of Princes. Right. And this council would be like still towards forever. It's like the governing body, right, of the high elves. Right. And so they get together for the first time, and Kaeldor Dragon Tamer's like, look, this is getting really bad. Chaos is everywhere. Like, we're holding our own. Like, the dwarves are losing out there. The lizard men are losing down there. Like, things are getting really bad. I have a plan. So his plan is to make a vortex out of the winds of magic, which is what magic is called in this. It literally is like wind. It gets blown around. Sometimes it's stronger. Sometimes it's not. The winds of magic change. So he decides to focus the winds of magic on the Isle of the Dead, which, if we can bring up Ulthwan, that's that little... You see how Ulthwan's kind of like a crescent? And there's a little island right in the middle. So his plan is to go to the Isle of the Dead, because it's like a very powerful center of magic, and begin using the winds of magic to create a giant vortex, which would suck up all the winds of magic out of the world and into the realm of chaos, which would work because chaos demons are made entirely of magic.
Okay, perfect.
So it would basically banish them from existence. And he's like, let's do it, guys. But there's a risk that this is going to rip the world in half.
Well, okay.
So Anarion shows up to this council, and he's like, yo, that's a dumb idea. You can't just rip the world in half. Like, we might as well have a fighting chance. And his quote is, he calls it the Council of Despair. That's what he calls them. He knew deep down they weren't going to win this war, but he didn't want to end the world by mistake, so he basically said, like, come up with something else. Like, work with something else. I'm going to go kill some fucking demons. So he's about to leave when a messenger shows up, and this messenger is dying, wounded, and says, Lord Anarion, terrible news, your wife's dead.
Okay. So
Astario, the Everqueen, fell in battle, and to make it worse, the children are nowhere to be found.
Oh, how are the children old enough to hold their own at this point, or are they still children?
They're about 35 years old. Yes, they can hold their own.
Okay.
So Anarion goes fucking berserk, and he is so overcome with rage that he's made a swear that he would kill every chaos creature that exists. And onlookers described him as, quote, filled with the resolutions of madness. And he went to the north to an area known as the Blighted Isle. Now, you know the Blighted Isle if you've played Total War Warhammer 2. This is an area where an object rests called the Sword of Cain. So I'll bring a picture up right now. Now, the Cain is another one of these gods of elves, and he is the god of death. And he made a sword forged by the elf god Vol, who's the smith, that contains the essence of himself, and the power of death is just in that blade. And it is said that you can't touch that sword. You're basically gonna kill yourself and ruin everything. But because he's like the avatar of the head of the gods, he's like, I'm gonna go take that sword and I'm gonna use it to kill all the demons.
Did he do it?
Kaeldor says in a moment of prophecy that this is a very bad idea. And if he pulls this sword out, he would be bringing eons of tragedy to all elf kind. And that he and his line would be a curse to their last generation.
Oh no.
Anarion decides to ignore this and goes to the Isle and pulls the sword out. So he gets the sword. He flies in on Dragonback, pulls the sword out of the stone, and basically feels like extremely stronger than he was before. He is described at this time becoming a god of war. And he decides that these people are idiots, so he's going to ignore them, and goes to a northern part of Ulthuan known as Nagaryth and creates his own kingdom. And this is like he's still part of the elf, like he's still part of the High Elves, but instead of being like part of the main kingdom, he's like, I'm gonna make my own fucking kingdom. You guys are idiots. We're gonna kill all the chaos demons. So yeah, basically. So he goes to Nagaryth, makes his own kingdom. Giant golden palaces, huge fucking fancy people, god of war leading them. And he did something very unexpected, something that made everyone else feel a little weird, which is he rescued a woman from a Slaanesh cult that he found. And this woman was a very powerful witch named Morathi. And he took her as his wife.
Oh, okay.
She was known as the most beautiful elf next to the Everqueen. So she was like famous for being hot, basically. She's like what's the Queen of Troy, Princess of Troy? Can't remember her name.
Helen.
Helen, yeah. She's like Helen of Troy, basically.
Right.
Like everyone's like all the elves think she's super hot, but she's like a really powerful witch. So people were like, I don't know, it's a bit like, don't touch crazy kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he goes with it, and they get together with Morathi, and they have a son. And this son's name is Malekith.
Oh, I've heard this.
So his son Malekith is strong, powerful. He's powerful. But things in the war still aren't going good. And sure enough, he feels the vortex being created on the Isle of the Dead. And everyone's like, oh my god, they're doing it. And this massive maelstrom being meant to absorb all the excess magic in the world is being created. Anarion had no choice but to travel to the Isle of the Dead and defend Kalador so he can finish the ritual. Just like, let's fucking go. We're doing this kind of thing. So he does. He's got the Sword of Cain. He's on the back of his his big giant blue dragon that he's known for.
Yep.
It's in that art. We'll pull that art up again. And it's that big blue dragon's there, and they're fighting demons. Fucking full army of demons are fighting. A massive Lord of Change of Tzeentch shows up to fight him one-on-one, named Kairos Fateweaver. Kairos Fateweaver is a giant Lord of Change, Tzeentch's strongest champion, and with one fell swoop of the Blade of Cain, he cleaves his head in half.
Oh.
Which that's the start of that guy's story, which that's a long one. Tzeentch is so disappointed with him at that point that he grabs Kairos and throws him into the Well of Eternity in the Realm of Chaos. Next, the Keeper of Secrets, Nikari, the champion of Slaanesh, the strongest of his demons, shows up, immediately cut in half and killed by Anarion. Next, the Great Unclean One, Throttle Gurglespew of Nurgle, immediately slaughtered by the Sword of Cain and Anarion's might. Next, the Bloodthirster Hargrim Dreadaxe, the strongest of all Chaos champions, leads the army. Not only is Hargrim killed, but the entire army is killed by the might of the Sword of Cain.
Jesus Christ, why is this sword so strong?
So, the sword is the power of the gods. The god of death is basically living in this sword, as well as being wielded by the avatar of the god of life. So it's this crazy crazy mix of power. So
he is the god of life and death at that point.
For the fortune of everyone, the ritual finishes, and it works just as planned.
Good.
So this massive vortex is formed. All the chaos gets sucked up into it. They're like, no, and they get sucked away all across the world. They're sucked into this vortex and pushed away.
Wow, that must have been a wild sight if you're just like in like Europe, wherever that.
Yeah, and you see them like full launched up. So to keep in mind, while this happened, the humans who worship chaos are not affected by this, so they're still around. These demon-enhanced human legions are still hanging around, but their demon allies, the bulk of their forces are gone. They're kind of like, oh shit, and they went into hiding at that point.
Yeah, it's probably for the best.
And Ulthuan, however, is forever affected by this. And they say that if you walk around Ulthuan, you hear like the songs of the dead. Like, you hear like whispers sometimes in the wind, like kind of thing. because it's this magic. It's just this storm is there forever. Like it's a constant vortex in the middle of Ulthuan.
Yeah.
And
I didn't I see it?
Yep. It's the whole. That's the plot to the Warhammer 2. Is
okay.
that vortex, and so the original mages who was lined up around the island, including Kalador Dragontamer himself, are forever trapped in the vortex, having to keep it up. So they're like kind of lost in time, and sometimes you can still see them or hear them, kind of thing.
Oh.
But they're there, forever locked in that vortex. And the next big...
That's what they got to do, I guess. That's the fate they have.
Yeah, so the next part of that story is the Sword of Cain is now, after that amount of bloodshed, whispering to Aeneron.
Uh-oh.
And Aeneron's head starts to get filled with whispers, and he's wounded. He's very wounded from this battle. He's fucked up, and his dragon.
Yeah, I bet.
And he's like, I have to put the sword back. That's what he determines. Like, I need to put the sword back in the stone, and deeper so no one else can pull it out. And he gets upon his dragon. They fly back to the Isle of the Dead up top. They land. Yeah. The dragon dies on landing because he's so wounded from fighting. Aeneron shoves the sword in the stone, collapses next to it, knowing that anyone who got this sword could rule the rest of the world. Like, they could rule the world because it's so powerful. He shoves that thing in there, using the last of his power to enchant it so it can't be drawn again except by someone basically worthy of drawing it. And he dies next to it. So that's the end of the story of Aenerion, the first Phoenix King.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's very, very like Greek too, in the way that like he walked into the fire and like failed and walked back into the fire and was the chosen kind of thing. You know, it's got a very Greek tragedy story to it.
Yeah, especially since like he went mad too. You know.
Yeah, he went mad. But he redeemed himself in the end. Fighting off and then dying from the battle. So, next we have part 4 of the story, which I called the New World. This is starts at 4420 C, where a dwarf ancestor god named Grimnir vanishes into the Chaos Wastes, and the other ancestor gods themselves disappear and vanish. So the dwarves are now without their gods for the first time. Back in Elfland, the High Elf Council votes a noble named Belshazzar to be the next Phoenix King, which caused some dispute amongst the elves, because if you remember, Aenerion had a son. All these veterans are like, why would you do that? Like, Malekith was like, he's a warrior. Like, why would he not be the king? Like, he's the Phoenix King, he's a great warrior. Belshazzar's a politician. And the argument is they didn't trust Malekith because he was raised in the Mad King's court of Naggareth. Like, he was like part of his life where he was kind of crazy. And they're like, I don't know, he's whatever. And Malekith basically just said, whatever, fuck you guys, I don't care. I don't want to be a king. That was his attitude. He's like, he wanted to, but he was like, just take it. Like, I don't care that much, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He'll just rule Naggareth. He doesn't need to rule the world. And they're like, okay, fine, whatever. So, at this time, the High Elves begin to colonize the New World. So they go from Ulthuan over to the area where the Empire is, more specifically landing on the area which is kind of like, I think it's the area called Estalia, which is like Spain.
Oh, okay. So like southeast or southwest a little bit?
Yeah. So they kind of land there, and they start making colonies. And who led them? Malekith. Because he said, fuck Belshazzar. He's an asshole. I'm just gonna leave the elves. Like, I don't get away, get out of my life, kind of thing. Like, I'm gonna leave your politics behind. I'm gonna leave these colonies. We're gonna make a new life over here. So they go and do that, and the first people he runs into are the dwarfs and their new elected king named Snorri Whitebeard. And these dwarves are under heavy assault by greenskins, and they are saved by Malekith and his elven warhost.
Nice.
So
Good job, Malekith.
The dwarves are like, oh, thank you so much. They're like, great. And then guess what happens? A chaos army attacks, and the elves are saved by the dwarves, led by Snorri Whitebeard. So this friendship is now born. Yeah. So unlike Lord of the Rings, this friendship is born between high elf, and dwarf, where they're like best friends, and it just keeps getting stronger. The more Malekith goes, the more friendships they become. They defeat a giant army of beastmen together that are sieging the dwarf capital. They become really good friends and allies. They party together, they feast together, kind of thing.
Dude, elves, and that's how it should be, you know? Elves and dwarves together, partying and drinking.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I love that. I'm picturing it in my head, and it's a jolly time.
Yeah. So the next event we have, -3894. Another lizardman city falls into the ocean, Chuapatli, and its inhabitants have to spread to other cities. So luckily they get out in time, but it does just kind of collapse and fall into the ocean.
Yeah, climate change will do that.
Yeah, basically literally what's happening with Chaos Invasion. So a dwarf group that lived in the Darklands turns to a archdemon they find still alive in the world named Hashut. And while he is not a proper chaos god, he is in fact unequivocally powerful in the archdemonhood. And to survive in the harsh wilds, they take his blessing and become the first chaos dwarves. So just note that that's their start kind of going down.
Okay, so
yeah.
they're from the Darklands. That gap in between.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and there's just like nothing there, right?
Yes, it's literally like a wasteland. It's like volcanoes. That's what's there. So it's like covered in ash all the time, kind of thing.
Mordor, kind
yeah,
of
basically. Yeah.
Got it.
So they become dark chaos dwarves, the dark dwarves, which are very popular.
So they embrace chaos. Got
yeah,
it.
basically. -3127, another big jump in time. Skink scribes, sorry I meant to say, record Lord Zlutep, which is a Slan priest, is plagued by memory loss. So he is a very powerful Slan, I think, of the first spawning, and he lost all his memory.
Oh.
So he's an interesting character. He's got a couple stories. I'm not going to talk about him, but just so for people listening, if they know about his story, this is where it starts. It's just kind of a fun little side story for him. But during this time as well, Malekith had made great progress in the old world. I have a picture of him. He should be up right now. There he is.
Malekith? I definitely know Malekith.
There's Malekith in his shiny, fancy armor with his horns and his elves behind him. That's him specifically marching through the World's Edge Mountains where the dwarves live, kind of progressing, being a warrior king.
Doing his thing.
So he ends up traveling further abroad. He goes to the Empire in Bretonnia, which is Bretonia's like France, and he kind of quests along the World's Edge Mountains, which is what this picture is, making war against tribal humans, likely chaos worshipping humans.
Yeah.
And traveling in the frozen north, he discovered a city. And this is an interesting city because it wasn't built by humans, dwarves, or elves, and it was completely uninhabited. So we kind of walked around. Was it?
Was it built by chaos people?
We don't know. Chaos don't usually build things. That'd be very weird. It's still unknown where this comes from. People think it's an old ones city that was forgotten about, but it's just completely uninhabited. And he walks around and ends up finding an artifact called the Iron Circlet, the Circlet of Iron, to be correct. And this is a crown made of pure iron, but it's imbued with a sorcery. And this sorcery is very dark, a magic that he's never seen before, and no one else around him has ever seen before. And so this awakened a curiosity in Malekith that he decided to kind of devote his life to studying and being more on the magical side of things.
Neat.
And he started to study in the forbidden depths of magic. The magic of chaos.
Oh, no.
But not in the way you're thinking. He wasn't worshipping chaos gods. He's just learning their spells. Like, how do they use magic kind of thing. So, while Malekith explored the world, Ulthuan went under a massive cultural change because the threat of war was gone. Indolence and selfish lives took over. And basically, elves all have heightened senses, so they were indulging them any way they could with temples. Temples in Naggareth were risen to the cults of luxury and pleasure. Cults of excess, worshipping forbidden gods, were erected all across Ulthuan, usually Slanish. And these cults would practice obscene rituals, including mass orgies and sacrifices.
Oh, well, the second part, I was just like,
Yeah, no, they would sacrifice people for their blood orgies. More and more of these followers would be drawn to the gods who should not be worshipped, and many of these elves sought escape from grief for how many were lost in the Chaos Wars. So they just got lost in having orgies and food and fucking all the time. And
don't forget the murder.
Yeah, and the murder. And the heart of these cults was in the land of Naggareth, which that's the region of Ulthuan where, remember, the the Phoenix King made his court and where
Right.
Malekith was from.
Yes. Yes.
So Belshazzar was the Phoenix King, and he was hesitant to act on any of this because Nagarath is where Anarion was from. And if he assaulted Anarion's home, people would be upset with him. But because of his lack of acting, whispers started to spread about how weak he was, and he was being known as the Usurper King or the Puppet King.
Well, that's what happens when you're not a blood. People don't really, buy into you.
So he was kind of being seen as this little baby boy. And sure enough, in the year negative 2750, Malekith returned home. And Malekith returned to Ulthuan, and he was heralded as a savior, because he was the sign of strength that would save his people as he started to hunt down these cults and exterminate them. He made a proclamation claiming, "No kingdom to be beyond my wrath, not even my home of Nagarath." And Malekith went to Nagarath to slay them and discovered that the chief architect of the cults was none other than his mother, Marathi.
Oh, awkward.
So, what did he do?
Killed his mom?
He renounced her and shackled her and put her in prison. Because he didn't want to kill his mom. People thought he was side with her, and he's like, "No, fuck you."
Yeah.
And captured her along with thousands of her people instead of killing them in Nagarath. Basically locked them in the dungeon of Nagarath. And he was out to capture anyone from the lowest farmer to the highest noble if they were involved with these cults at all. And despite this, these cults continued to grow. So a deal was struck between Malekith and Marathi. Marathi can lead the cults as long as you keep them under control. Like, just let them be a little thing. Don't let them take over, and she agrees. Over the next 2 decades, however, the armies of the cults rose up and pushed Malekith and his guards, his most elite followers, back to the Phoenix King's court at Tor Anrock, which is like the capital of the elves, and he had to take shelter with Belshazzar. And he would ask the Phoenix King to convene the Council of Princes so that he could control all of Ulthuan's armies to finally push out the cults of pleasure once and for all. The Phoenix King agrees. He says, "Okay, call the princes." And this is when Malekith's plan finally got unveiled. Before the princes arrived, he would murder Belshazzar.
Oh.
When the princes arrived, he announced that Belshazzar was a member and leader of the cults, taking the coward's route and killing himself by poisoning himself before he could be rightfully tried. And Malekith now would take his crown and assume leadership of the elves as the Phoenix King to stop the cults. However, the princes said bullshit. That guy's a little bitch, and he would never be a leader of a cult. And called out Malekith. And when this kind of happened, Malekith's guards began slaughtering the Council of Princes and their guards.
God, Malekith really shouldn't have probably done that. It was probably a dumb move on his part.
So
I was liking him all the way up until this point.
Yeah, so Malekith says, "Fuck you guys, I'm the Phoenix King, it's my throne, my dad was the king, I'm the rightful heir, I'm gonna step in the fire and become the chosen lord, and be the Phoenix King once more." And the guards are watching him, and there's fighting going on. He takes his armor off, and he steps into the fire to accept his blessing, being of legendary blood of Assyrian. And he shrieks in pain as his flesh and hair are burned off of his body, and he lays bare, charred on the floor, but he does not get back up. So,
awkward.
Horrifically scarred, his disciples grab him, says he's still barely alive, and carry him out and run away with Malekith's charred, fucked up body. However,
that must be very humbling for Malekith.
Yeah, he's unconscious at this point. But he would be. So most of Ulthuan's council is slain at this point, and the elves are thrown into super disorder, as well as starting the Great Elven Civil War.
Yep, okay.
So
this is where I played in Warhammer 2, didn't it?
No, this is way in the past of Warhammer 2. We're still way in the past. But the leader of the High Elves knew nothing about the danger of how bad this was until Malekith's armies, even without him around, started sieging their castles.
Oh.
Because the pleasure cults were in every family. Like, every ruling family had someone in the pleasure cults, and they would kill their family, take over their lands.
That's a lot.
And start to, take over this stuff. So the elves finally got their shit together. nobles created a new council of princes and crowned Imric Kaeldor, which you might remember that name from Kaeldor Dragon Tamer, who was his grandfather. He becomes the next Phoenix King. A little side note of what's happening also during this time in Cathay. One of the few things we knew about them. A giant meteor was about to fall on them, so they pushed it to the left. And the reason why they push it to the left is because these people live to the left of them, which the picture I'm bringing up now, the ogre tribes. So the ogres were the people made to fight chaos, right? But during this time, they lived in the land to the east of Cathay, which was just rolling hills and grasslands that was all calm. There was giant native yaks that lived there that supplied the ogres with fresh meat and milk. However, the ogres had no barrier between them and the kingdoms of Cathay. There was nothing blocking them. So ogre tribes, they were nomadic and they traded with each other, and they often fought each other, sometimes for fun, sometimes for territory. But Cathay would eventually teach ogres how to make fire. And so, in return, they allowed the ogres to be recruited. The ogres said, we'll give you some men for your army. So the ogres sent soldiers to join the Cathayan armies.
Oh, that's cool.
And so they got some pretty good relations. Over time, however, ogres began to raid Cathayan villages because they were starting to spread into ogre land. And this gave ogres their first taste of human flesh.
Oh, no. They like it, huh?
And they loved it. And this was something that the Celestial Dragon Emperor Zhen Huang took very seriously, because as the massive comet was following, he's like, nope, push it to their land. So their astromancers, which are like what they're known for, pushed a comet over there. It crashed down and destroyed their grassland, turning it into ruin and a searing desert full of sandstorms and deadly eldritch magic. And it also became what is known as the Great Maw, which is the god that the ogres worship now, is actually just a comet that fell into the world. But they were so afraid of it and its terrible power, they began to worship it as a god.
Well, they aren't the smartest guys.
No. So that's Ogreland. That stuff's happening at the same time. So
okay. So meanwhile, there's a civil war going on in Uthlan.
And the ogres get seriously fucked up by Cathay.
Yeah, okay.
Back in Nagaryth in the Uthlan, the nobles, Lord of the Phoenix King, rise up in rebellion against Malekith in his own home, and a battle known as the Battle of Darkfen occurs. And this is when they are defeated by an army led by none other than Marathi herself, using her powerful magic, completely exterminates a High Elf army on her own. A High Elf named Alith Anar leads survivors away, and he continues a kind of silent guerrilla warfare on the island during this whole civil war. The Phoenix King in the southern tip of the land of Ulthwan, there's a place called the Cult of Vol, and they are a group of people who worship the elven god Vol, who's the god of the forge. And
you mentioned that.
And their head of Vol, the cult, is a man named Hotek, and he secretly sides with Malekith, and he begins to forge weapons for Malekith. And he forms armor for Malekith using the magical hammer of Vol, which he owns. This is the same armor and weapons that Anarion used. So this is very powerful stuff he's giving his army. He gets found out, however, and has to flee, but not before leaving with the legendary hammer. And when he's discovered, he gets back to Malekith's crippled body, barely hanging on to life, and creates a suit of armor for him, known as the Armor of Midnight. And this armor is magically enchanted with runes that make him feel no pain, make him able to stand up again and live with basically normal. And he rises again in his black armor. His formerly all broken body is back in this fully encased suit of armor that also keeps him alive. He doesn't eat or drink. His armor just keeps him alive forever.
He's Darth Vader.
Yeah, literally. And growing in this dark sorceress power, which he's just been stewing in as he was just a charred husk.
Yeah,
he is
he's
now
totally Darth Vader.
Yeah, he's back. I got a picture of him on stream now in his black armor, and he declares himself Malekith the Witch King, and names his followers the Dark Elves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
how they got started.
That's the start of the Dark Elves. And now a thing that's different from them to other fantasy Dark Elves is they're not like Drow in Lord of the Rings or anything, where they're like dark skinned. They're just normal elves. They look exactly the same.
They're just followers.
Yeah, they're just followers of Malekith. They look the same though. Of course, their cultures grow to be vastly different. So that's how, and they do end up becoming a little more pale for natural reasons, but that's it. So this Witch King Malekith would become one of the most fearsome foes of all time, as he tamed a black dragon named Sulek to be his mount, and he force feeds it.
Team up with me. We'd look so cool together.
No, this is a bad dragon. This fucker wants to eat anything in her path, and he feeds her warpstone, which, if you remember, is the pure chaos energy that grows around chaos rifts.
That's the green crystal.
Yes, so he feeds her nothing but warpstone since she was a baby, and she ends up killing the rest of her brood, being the sole survivor, and growing to be extremely evil and unpredictable, only ever allowing the Witch King to approach her. He promised her infinite blood and slaughter, and that gets her on his side, and she becomes his loyal dragon mount and companion.
Aww.
Unlike other dragons that blow graceful, elegant flames, Suketh spews noxious, toxic gases that basically immediately just kill anything in its path that's alive.
Oh, God.
So, he's got a giant black dragon mount. He shows up in battle and completely destroys the High Elven army led by the Phoenix King. It's said that he zaps lightning from his hands, just like a Sith, basically, and disintegrates enemies. Malekith does. So he's just like this crazy wizard king lord.
Wow, he is. Okay. So are the High Elves fucked at this point?
They're still fighting, but new armies get risen, stuff like that happens. So during this time, 2745 to 2735, the war in the sky happens, which is when the ogres migrate north because their land got fucked up, and they encounter the giants, a race known as the Sky Titans, who are as intelligent as humans, and they're about 7 stories tall.
Oh, Jesus.
I have a picture of them on screen now. They are massive creatures, and they're extremely intelligent, and what do the ogres do but kill them all?
Oh, God damn.
And take their lands for their own because they have no home anymore. So the giants do get destroyed. They do get scattered, however, and over time start to devolve into a much more dumb, even dumber than ogres level of intelligence. And you can still see them kind of lumbering around in areas. But generally the dragons get, the giants, who were once like a whole race, gets almost wiped out immediately. They say one giant kill will feed an ogre tribe for 100 days.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, 7 stories tall. So wait, so are there still giants that exist? They're just kind of nomadic.
Yes, they're very rare.
Okay.
They're very rare. Okay. They basically, when they meet, it's a daddy and a mommy meet to have a baby, and they'll never see each other again, kind of thing. Yeah. But they're also immortal, so some of them just don't. Some of them just have been around for this long, and they just become dumb and just live forever.
Yeah.
So back in the Elflands, however, Malekith and Marathi, who are both masters of dark sorcery, attempt to undo the vortex as their final bid to fight the High Elves, because things start to turn very bad for them in the war. There's just not enough followers of Malekith, and sure enough, they start to lose. So they say, listen, we're both like masters of dark magic, me and Mom. We're going to go to this vortex, we're going to undo the vortex and bring chaos back to fuck the elves in the ass. And then So, nothing can go wrong with that plan, I guess.
That sounds like a terrible fucking idea.
So, luckily, High Elf spies made them aware of this, and the Phoenix King was able to rouse all the mages back to the area to thwart the unbinding, but unexpected Malekith himself showed up to undo the vortex, and he was the strongest mage of them all, and they could not hold his power at bay. And they said Malekith's magic was so strong that the night sky of stars flickered out of existence for brief moments, and the vortex itself failed. Freed from their eternal stasis of making the vortex, Kalador Dragon Tamer and his mages were still standing there. They just kind of showed up like, what the fuck? Like, why are we here? And he saw his grandson. His grandson basically told him what was going on. He's like, shit, let's go. Chaos is coming back. So Kalador and his mages begin to once again bring the vortex back, and Malekith, I should say, proves no match for Kalador's strength and magic. And the vortex is brought back. It's pushed into position again, which basically fucks the world around Ulthuan. Like, it gets fucked up. So if you look at the world map we have in the background, you see how it's kind of like a bunch of islands kind of together. It used to be a whole solid island. And the vortex just fucked the area, flooded most of Ulthuan. Nagarath itself was ripped off of the planet, basically. I should say off of the ground. Like it separated from the earth. And it was floating in the water because of magic held by Malekith at this time. Basically holding his city on the water and turning it into a ship. So, Nagarath Castle was a floating ship, which is now a common thing for Dark Elves to do. These are known as Black Arcs, to build their cities on ships. But this is the first of that. And the Dark Witch King and his mother are left to flee to the desolate wastes of Nagaroth, known as the Lands of Chill, which I think is pretty fucking chill.
Hell yeah, dog. So that's Canada.
Canada and North America. It's all fucked. It's all just a wasteland of snow. Yeah, so it's just a super boned land, and the vortex made it a lot worse than it was already when it got fucked with.
So basically, Malekith was like, took down the vortex, chaos was getting unleashed, and the guy's like, "You fucking idiot," and put it back.
Yeah, basically.
It's like,
so
why would you do that?
Yeah, so the Dark Elves lose, but they do begin to settle on founding the land called Nagaroth, which is where they will live for the rest of the time, and they kind of make their continent. It's their home, and their culture starts there.
Just like Americans.
Yeah, basically. They settled it. So our last little part we're going into is the post-Sundering world, which is just a couple notes we have here. The ogres settled the lands of the Sky Titans, like I mentioned before, and living in the area known as the Mountains of Morn. Zar Nagrund, the capital of the Chaos Dwarfs, is allegedly razed by its own sorcerers in a single magical mistake overnight.
Oops.
And so to fix this, the Chaos Dwarves begin to enslave mass hordes of greenskins to rebuild their cities. So they have that, I guess, going for them.
Great.
Humans build their first large city known as Skaven Blight, which is located where Spain is. It's basically kind of near like Italy. Like northern Italy is called Skaven Blight. And this is the height of human civilization at the time. This is the same year the civilization of Nehekara rises in the Southlands and Araby, which is a nation of priest-king rulers who mummify their dead and entomb them in great pyramids. Yes. These clusters of tombs and pyramids are called necropolises. Their leader, Cetra, beats back the Bloody Fang orc tribe and becomes obsessed with his own mortality, seeing so much death around him, and founds a group known as the Mortuary Cult, demanding its priests unlock immortality. That was negative 2,500. So negative 2,400, the ogres discover the race of dragon ogres. Relations are hostile. They're kind of like centaur, four-legged ogres. The ogres beat them in combat and push them north, once again, almost wiping out a race from existence.
Oh my god.
Cetra names Nikaf as his champion, who secures the unconditional surrender of a dozen cities over the Southlands, and if they don't submit, they are destroyed. Cetra finally passes away at this time, and his body is entombed in the magnificent pyramid in preparation for when he will rise again and rule for eternity.
Great.
As they say.
So Egyptian.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
That's so Egyptian. It's so
so after this, dozens of kings rise up, and they'll fall after the death of Cetra through the years negative 2350 to 1950. Just kind of like rising, getting mummified, getting entombed. Everly more elaborate these pyramids become.
Love to see it.
You know, their civilization is flourishing. At this time as well, negative 2340, Dark Elves discover the Underworld Sea, which is a massive network of basically subterranea that connects the whole world, and Dark Elves are using it to get around.
That's nice. Good for them. Also, that's good for war.
Yes, very much good. They're basically pirates at this point, too, just to be clear. Dark Elves are famously like a pirate race, infamously, I should say.
They basically went from like a fringe faction from the north of Ulthuan to like a race of Dark Elves in their own land, and then they got pushed out.
Yeah.
So
and now they're like they're called the Black Corsairs a lot, and they kind of just cool. Destroy people around the cities. Negative 2000, Mullah Aklan, a young celebrated warrior from Araby, which you can see on the east bit of Africa on the map, assembles a large army to drive high elves out of Araby, who had a colony because he hates elves with a passion because his village and parents were killed by them in a raid when he was young, and he succeeds in kicking out the high elves and creates the nation of Araby, and he becomes the first great sultan. So that nation's around now.
Neat.
Negative 2000 again, ancient records of the lizard men refer to battling the Lost Dwarf stronghold, Karak, Zorn, and Lustria, which were in the... I think they're playable in Total Warhammer 2. You can play as that Dwarf Lord. It's pretty fun. But a bigger event happens in the year 2000, negative 2000, which is a character known as Nagash is born.
Who dat?
We're going to talk about that right now. The next thing that happens, though, however, 3 years later, it was mentioned in chat earlier by MJ Durlac, the War of the Beard begins. Elf and dwarf friendship is gone, and they're going to be fighting for about 1,000 years, almost. Like, massive wars break out in the old world between, which is like, the Europe area between elves and dwarves.
Yeah.
But negative 1968, back in Nehekara, a city known as Kemri is founded, which I have a picture of right there. As you can see by the picture when it shows up for you, it is extremely Egyptian. And a group of dark elves that were driven off course while raiding from storms are forced to dock in this city. And when they do, this man we talked about earlier, Nagash, this is now like what? It's 2 years later, so he's 30 years old. Begins to learn the dark magic from them. And he proves to be a quick master of the art. And having learned all he could from the dark elves, he defeats their leaders in a duel of sorcery and has the survivors entombed alive within the Great Pyramids of Kemri.
Oh, okay.
With the power he gained from the Dark Elves, he now kills the Priest King of Kemri and seizes power in his place of the nation.
Oh, all right. Rock and roll. Good for him.
1950 to 19... This is a huge gap. Negative 1950 to 1750.
Okay. So like 200-something years.
Nagash begins to prolong his youth by distilling an elixir made of human blood. He recruits... blood magic. He recruits depraved nobles to rule under him, and they start to see themselves as gods. And the city's populations become their playthings, as they're immortal now, as long as they keep extending their life like this. And they start to get hurt by sunlight, and they begin to seek out dark places, and Nagash constructs the Black Pyramid of Nagash in the center of the Southlands, which is the largest structure built by man, dwarfing the greatest pyramids ever built before. Basically. During this time, Cathay completed the Great Bastion, which is a massive wall known as the Dragon's Spine. It's an impenetrable quarter-mile-high wall that spans across the nation to protect them from chaos invasions.
The Mongols. Chaos invasions.
Yes, that's just the Great Wall. So back to Nagash, the priest kings are afraid of him, and they start to rally against him, and after a century of warfare, his power is finally broken. He's driven to flee north. The priest kings of Lamia, which is the city he was in, take away his books in an area known as the Black Library, and seek to emulate his dark magics. People are just can't learn. So a massive earthquake at this time also breaks the Great Bastion in Cathay, which allows Chaos Warriors to invade again. So that happened. A massive organized assault of Chaos Warriors invades Nagaron in their capital of Nagaroth, and Malekith does beat them. However, it wasn't easy, but this is the first ever major Chaos Warrior attack, organized by men, not demons.
Oh. Man, come on, humans. What the fuck?
Oh, don't worry. They're the Nehekara, these are all humans. They're doing great in Egypt.
That's true, except for the vampires.
So, negative 1660. A race of humanoid rats appear in the Southlands of the Old World and take over the city known as Skavenblight. These people become known as the Skaven, and they begin to look further afield for warpstone, seemingly obsessed with it, which seems to be the source of their intelligence and size. So they were literally rats who ate chaos crystals and became the Skaven. Yes.
Stop eating rocks, guys.
Those are what you fight in Skaventide. That's the Skaven, or Vermintide. They are the Skaven. Yeah. I love the Skaven to death. They're great. The War of the Beard ended this year with the death of the Elf King Calador II, and the dwarves are claimed victorious.
Dwarves, now stop fighting and
They
party.
retreat to their home of Karaz Karak and begin feasting. Nagash and his servant Archon are overthrown Arkan, I should say, are overthrown by an army known as the Army of Seven Kings, which is the rest of the humans there. Arkan is killed in this process. Nagash flees to an area known as Triple Peak, which is a massive mountain made of nothing but warpstone, and is the largest piece of warpstone in the world. And he begins but he does experiment with it.
Okay.
Because he wants to know how to use his chaos magic. And it begins to burn his body away, just radioactively. So he has to keep using stronger necromancy magic to keep himself even alive.
Oh, boy.
Negative 1520, Neferata, a human leader. That sounds like another person in real life. Queen Neferata from Nehekhara creates a corrupted version of the elixir of life to prolong her life like Nagash made. However, it's wrong, and when she drinks it, she is corrupted with a thirst for human blood and begins to bite her followers, passing down her lineage, creating the race of vampires.
Let's fucking go.
Negative 1500, High Elves leave the old world. The declining dwarf empire is destroyed in a series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Orcs and goblins pour over the dwarven lands, looting their cities, and the dwarves refer to the next 500 years as the Goblin Wars. The dwarves also fight with the Skaven in this war in a massive three-way battles, constantly underground, in their war for their old kingdoms, trying to get it back. The High Elves leave their colonies, never to return, and go to Ulthuan. At this time, a lizard named Lord Quex of the Lizard Men enacts his realignment of the Continents spell, trying to bring the world back to Pangaea, and the world's edge mountains and the dwarves living in it are ridden by horrific earthquakes, as mentioned before, also causing volcanoes to erupt. And as far as the mage priests of the Slan are concerned, it's the will of the Old Ones, as written out by their ancient prophets. However, this is not true at all, as what actually happened was the Skaven had a series of failed experiments going wrong underground, causing massive nuclear explosions. And this also destroyed almost the entirety of the Skaven population, causing them to form what is now known as the Council of 13, which is their governing body. And the Slan they just nuked themselves.
Okay.
And the Slan are completely ignorant of Skaven's existence, so they think it's their magic, but it's not.
Yeah. That's so fucking dumb. But
They were just the Slan were just praying to the Old Ones, and that happened. They're like, "Fuck, that was dope." They had no idea what the fuck actually happened.
Just a bunch of rats are just like, try it out.
Yeah. So, 1500 to 1350, Nagash learns to use small quantities of warpstone. Oh, also here's a picture of Skaven, just so we can kind of see him on screen. Nagash learns to use small quantities of warpstone to aid in his dark magic, and he begins to experiment with corpses, doing the first successful reanimation magics, creating zombies and skeletons. Since he has no followers, he uses his undead slaves to excavate mines for him to get more warpstone. And they end up creating the fortress city of Nagashazar underneath the sands.
Neat.
Also known as the Cursed Pit. This would become his giant underground home full of the dead and experiments in necromancy. Primitive humans around the area began to worship him as a god, which led to them devolving into the corpse-eating races known as ghouls.
Oh, okay. I didn't know ghouls were in the game. Great.
Yeah. Within the next few hundred years, Nagash has a powerful empire of the dead spreading throughout the Southlands. Negative 1450, a Skaven named Malkrit, known as Lord of Decay, leads Clan Moulder into the Troll country north of Kislev and creates a city known as Hellpit. Skaven Clan Eshin settles in Cathay and fades away from knowledge for the next couple thousand years. Skaven Clan Pestilens occupy the lizard ruins in Lustria and end up spreading plague throughout the land, killing most of the lizard men, and causing constant war between the two races for centuries. Negative 1300 to negative 1200, Skaven are finally drawn to the Warpstone of Cripple Peak. Drawing them into a massive war against the great necromancer Nagash, these two empires, the dead and Skaven, are fighting, but he is able to drive the rats back again and again. Eventually, into a settlement is reached between the two peoples, as in the person, I guess, and then the rats, where the rats agree to lure orcs and goblins into the Cursed Pit in return for small bits of warpstone pieces.
Well, that's nice.
Negative 1200, a king of the Khemri is crowned Alcadizar the Conqueror, and he unites Nekahara under his rule for the first time since Cetra, and it flourishes once more. Rebel priest kings who live under Nagash are learned about, basically, and they send they learned about Nagash being the leader. They've been like worshipping him basically since then, and they send emissaries to him, and this event unfortunately gets kind of intercepted by the people of Khemri, and the followers of Nagash are driven out of Nekahara, and the city of Lamia, where they're from, is burned down, so no one can ever read the books of the Black Library again.
Oh, that sounds similar.
Yeah. Negative 1197, Nagash is slain by Skaven treachery as they backstab him and kill him and melt his bones.
Oh.
But unfortunately for the Skaven and everyone else in the world, his hand survived and crawled away on its own.
This world is weird.
Negative 1185, Ramhotep, the greatest of the Necrotechs, which are like ancient Egyptian magic engineers, finishes the Sepulchre of the Heavens in an area known as Qatar, literally spelled like the country in real life.
Oh, okay.
And as a reward for his great creation, he is mummified and interned alive within the monument.
Oh, how nice.
Negative 1163 to negative 1152, Nagash returns to life. I have a picture of him there. He's back. He's undead. Piece of him lives. He can come right back.
Rock and roll, baby.
He's basically a lich at this point. They never use the word lich in Warhammer, but he's the closest you can get to it. So he returns and declares war on the priest kings, and though his dead were defeated and devastated in the war, basically he lost against the humans, he did unleash a plague upon them, his own undead immune to them, and the living killed by the plague in droves, each one adding another soldier to his army. The king, Alcatizar, is caught and brought in chains to the pit that he controlled, Nagashizar, and tormented by Nagash. 1151, after consuming large amounts of warpstone, he ate the warpstone. He finally did it. Nagash began the ritual of waking. This would be an act to bring back all the dead ever in the Southlands, under his control. Sensing the danger, the Skaven are like, shit, this is bad, and they break into Nagashizar and free King Alcadizar, who was being tortured down there. So the Skaven free him and say, dude, you gotta stop this guy. So he runs back and cuts down Nagash in the middle of his spell and flees with his crown of sorcery. We'll get back to that next episode of Warhammer. However, many of the undead are still raised in this great ritual. And basically all those mummies are back to life. And that's bad. And so basically all the human population of the kingdom of Nehekara are slain as the War of Kings begins when all the reanimated Tomb Kings fight for supremacy over each other. Cetra, the original king, returns and once again causes all the others to submit.
Well, it's nice to see Cetra again.
Yes, we have a picture on screen of Cetra and his guard, Archon the Black. Or Nagash's guard, Archon the Black, who came back to life as well, who created his own kingdom on the side that would wipe out the nation of Araby.
Oh.
And Araby is now kind of dissolved into small tribes. They're still around, but they're no like nation. There's just a bunch of desert tribes and villages living together. Cetra declares the reign of 1,000,000 years and commands all the Tomb Kings to return to rest, and most of them do. Archon the Black establishes himself as a great warrior, having done what he did in Araby, and has his own nation of Tomb Kings. And so is the rise of the dead. So
it's nice to have an undead group of people you can play as.
Yes, and they're Egyptian.
That's really cool.
That is very cool. Everyone loves the Tomb Kings. They're one of the most popular armies that exist. Unfortunately, their miniatures haven't been made since like the year 1995, so they're not in the game anymore. But hopefully, one day we'll get Tomb Kings back. But if you play Total War Warhammer 2, you can play as the Tomb Kings. So
that's pretty cool. I bet that's pretty easy to manage. I mean, they're just dead things.
They don't have to eat, and that's a part of the that's a part of the game. And yeah, this was a really long episode. We just broke 2 hours. But
nice, that's our first time, I think.
Yeah, it's our first time, but that's what I got today. That's where we're ending. The Tomb Kings are rising.
Okay, so wow.
And I decided to end it on that point because where we are left in this world in the year of negative 1150, Cathay is the only human empire that exists. They're not doing good. They're fighting chaos constantly. That's why they built the wall. The High Elves have secured their dominance in Ulthuan. The Dark Elves have secured their dominance in Nagaroth. The Lizard Men control Lustria. The Undead or the Tomb Kings now have risen to control the whole area of Africa, the Southlands, and Araby. And the Skaven control Skavenblight.
Where's Skavenblight again?
Skavenblight is kind of it's not on this map. I mean, it probably is, but it's south of, it's in between Spain and Tilia, which is it's in between Estalia and Tilia, which is kind of like real life, like north, like either southern France or northwestern Italy, like that area where those where they touch is where, like, where Monaco is basically. It's a very small area. Yeah, it's basically, I guess Monaco is actually what it is. It's Monaco. It's a single city nation that's in between those two areas.
Wow.
Controlled by the rats.
So I'm looking at the map and I'm trying to get a synopsis of where people are. So there's people in Cathay.
Yeah.
So there's nothing going on in the Empire where that was.
No, that's all just humans, tribes living. That's next time we go into Warhammer, we're gonna get into that.
Okay, so human tribes are there, but no like established thing except Cathay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so ogres are living in that. What does it just say?
It says ogre kingdoms. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Darklands are chaos dwarves, right?
Yep.
Chaos dwarves.
And
got that big old
they're called the World's Edge Mountains, and at this time the dwarves have cities there, but earthquakes and volcanoes like wrecked a lot of them, which let in rats and goblins in mass. And so they're fighting them constantly. Yeah.
So I imagine any of the dwarves, like, were there any dwarves in, like, the southern lands in those mountains down there?
Yes, there are, and they're still there.
Okay, so are they fighting off the undead, probably?
They're fighting Tomb Kings probably, too, but mostly they're keeping to themselves because they're underground. The Tomb Kings don't really care about the mountain's homes.
That's good. So and it's called the Edge of the World because basically everything on the other side, as far as they know, is basically nothingness.
Yeah. So
even though Cathay is there,
we're going to talk more about it last time, but we mentioned the vampires also coming to existence. If you don't know, in Warhammer, vampires are a huge faction. They're one of the major factions. Is the vampire courts, and the vampires at this point are basically hiding in the Black Pyramid of Dagash. Like they're kind of they're kind of fighting the Tomb Kings. The Tomb Kings kind of hate them because they're like living undead. You know what I mean? They're not like Tomb Kings are skeletons. They're proud to be skeletons, and they're like we're the rightful owners, and they're very bitter and old.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the vampires are like, we get to stay sexy. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about them next time.
Yeah. Man,
and so MJ
gather up all where everything is.
MJ Durlek in chat brought up Norska. So Norska up top, which is like Scandinavia. Full of humans and trolls. Humans fighting trolls, humans fighting dragons. Not necessarily chaos, but mostly chaos.
Yeah. Man, okay, I'm just trying to gather where everything is, so when we play Warhammer 3, I'm going to be able to pick...
Yeah, yeah. So when we do Warhammer 3, whatever the Immortal Empires or Mortal Empires, whatever it's called, comes out, which is this whole fucking map, it's going to be, firstly, absolutely madness with how many factions you can pick from and all the starting points. But you'll be able to get a big point of it. I know this map from playing Total Warhammer. Like, I've been a huge fan of Warhammer Fantasy forever, but playing the Warhammer games and being literally on the map, you learn all the locations. Yeah,
I'm excited. Again, like, when I played Warhammer 2, I never dawned on me that it kind of was... Earth, a little bit, because I played as High Elf, so I literally was on the one thing that's really not part of our planet. Or has been buried for a long time.
Or is it?
Oh, yeah. We'll do an Atlantis Lower Lords. Actually, that would.
Oh yes, we probably will. It's on my list.
It's a good one. But okay, this is awesome. I love this too because it kind of bridges a little bit of a gap too between like Lord of the Rings, our planet, and then also again this idea of chaos. And I love the way that they do chaos because it's literally chaos. It's just like the rules are there. And actually something that Super Pooper mentioned earlier too, that like chaos is and I actually know this from when I was living in Salem, Massachusetts, which is actually huge witch population. Like chaos is like generally what is used in our planet too when it comes to like witchcraft and stuff. Like it's one of the methods, it's one of the like practices of like chaos magic is it like a very real thing. Like, well, you know, it's a very real practice, I should say, that I find fucking fascinating and awesome. So it's not the same thing though. Don't worry. If you do chaos magic in IRL, you will not summon giant titted 6 titty creatures
or
giant tongues. No. Chaos magic IRL is more to shift events, you know, whatever, but like not like that. no titty creatures. But anyway, this was cool. I love this. I am so in. I love the concepts of chaos. I think it's fascinating. It reminds me a lot of like, it's very echoing of like the 7 deadly sins, only it's boiled down to like 4 gods and stuff, which I really like, and it kind of like justifies it. It's very interesting. And again, at least 2 of those chaos gods, they don't seem that bad, all things considered. You know what I mean? Like worshipping them. Like you shouldn't, because it'll lead to chaos taking over. But like it's very interesting that like there's a lot of like moral ambiguity going on between the laws of the natural world and then the laws of chaos, which are obviously lack of laws. But yeah, this is cool. I like this. I'm excited to play more.
we love Warhammer. Warhammer's great.
Thank you, Atlas, for this. Thank you very much.
Of course, you're very welcome. That's the end of today's episode here. So if you want to, thank you everyone for listening. If you want to catch us live, we do this on Thursdays, twitch.tv/Atlas669.
That's right. And also, just letting you all know, as of this week, we have the 2nd episode is dropped on YouTube right now, Anime Water. So go check it out. You can just type in Lore Lords episode 1 or 2, and you might see the big old fat logo that Super Pooper made us, which is phenomenal. And next week we have another one dropping. So on Wednesday, usually it's like Wednesday night at midnight. So Thursday morning, we have the new episodes dropping. So if you guys want to listen to some old episodes, they're popping up now. So get excited.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Everybody. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
And end recording.